what questions should IT managers and company stakeholders ask themselves before beginning their digital transformation journey?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first thing really you should ask yourselves is what are your objectives? Because if you don't have, your end goal clearly defined and kind of a coherent strategy before you even start the process, you're just setting yourself up to get lost along the way and most likely be doomed to failure. I mean, if you don't have that very first question answered, then you're just not going to get there.
No, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I mean, I think that's the first step to any kind of plan. And, digital transformation journeys aren't easy. So if there's one thing that you can do for a project of this level of complexity is really to have clear objectives. So I agree with you on that.
Another thing that's important is, are you willing to commit the time and resources to testing during the process? Because no matter how well you plan things, it's not going to be perfect the first go around. So you're going to get into that kind of test and learn process where, okay, we finally got something that we can see what it's going to look like. A lot of times in the ERP space, we'll call it a conference room pilot. So you go out, you're actually testing the processes. And if you don't have that time that you're willing to put into it, and this is people time internally, because that's always a challenge because they still have to do their day in and day out jobs. But to put that time in and then say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Now we've got to go back and make some changes. And so you have to know on the front end, there's going to be a lot of internal time that's going to be invested. And you need to make sure that you commit to that right at, from the beginning.
I think that's a really good point because, I lived in the software world for a long time. And I think, the biggest mistake I've seen companies make is they make such an investment in software platforms and integrations, and they bring in the consultants, they bring in the subject matter experts to help them. And they put so much pressure on themselves to get it right out of the gate versus looking at, that sort of software mentality of agile, and scrums and sprints and test and learn from day one right through implementation and beyond, and then there's training and whatnot. And so I think that you raise a really really critical point where I've seen companies sort of skimp on sort of those internal checks and balances, and because they just want to get right to the let's get it up and running, and what that ends up costing them. Phil's heard me say this before, companies never have the time or money to do it right the first time, but they sure find it the second time, right, when things don't go as smoothly as they want. So I think that's a really really important piece.
Another thing that's important is, are there any obstacles that could prevent, it being successful that you can identify just from the get-go? I've had it where, we've had our project plan laid out. We've got, hey, we're going to hit this metric here, and then we get back using the conference room pilot as an example, get to that. And one of the people that's supposed to be involved in the conference room pilot was on vacation that week. And it's been, they asked for that off before we even started the project. Nobody managed to notice that that was on their calendar until like 2 weeks out. And so we had to push the conference room pilot another week, which, then you start endangering missing deadlines and people start getting, hey, why are we behind, that type of thing. So, can you see some simple things right off the gate that potentially are going to be obstacles that you can identify before you even start the process?
Yeah, that's something that we see a lot is not taking the time to identify those risks, right? Like projects like this, you look at the upside, there's so much potential, right? Everyone gets caught up in, oh my God, I can't wait till all these features come into place. It's going to save us so much time and so much money. But there's a lot of risks with projects like this. So absolutely, obstacles is a great thing for these IT managers and company stakeholders to think about. Anything else, Christopher, on the sort of questions that these leaders should be thinking about?
One kind of final thing is, are you going to be able to operate at two speeds? And when I'm saying that, I was like, you still have to run your business and you can't disrupt it, during the implementation process. So that's kind of the slow and steady. We got to keep doing what we do. But the digital transformation, the implementation is even though the process might seem long and drag out, it's a much faster, nimble, and especially once you get into where you're testing, where you're making change quickly on the fly, you got to be more nimble And even after go live, it's still an ongoing process that you're making tweaks and changes. And so you kind of have to have that where you got to think, all right, I'm operating at these two different speeds. Can I do this?
That's a very good point, because yeah, it's, when you're working on these projects, there's a lot of collaboration, internal collaboration, external collaboration, and not everyone works at the same pace. Everyone has other things to do. So I think that's a great point, and I think putting that into these leaders' minds that this is going to take time, but some of these weeks it's going to be intense, and you need to be able to operate at those speeds. I think that's a great point to remember as a leader. Hi everyone, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to share with friends, smash the like button, and subscribe.